You're watching Chick-Fil-A Overtime with me, Corey Miller, on Watch Fox. Good evening again. Thanks for staying up late with us. Welcome into Chick-Fil-A Overtime. I'm Corey Miller, pastor of Payne, alongside SC Varsity's very own Jim Baxter. And today, matter of fact, the SCISA school started camp early this morning. I know Hammond was on the field. It's time to get practicing. And Jim, we know we like to hear the word camp, because it's been the dog days of summer. We've been talking and spinning and creating topics to talk about here in the Chick-fil-A Overtime. But now we can start to see guys, at least SCISA's today, public school starts tomorrow. It's time for some football.
It's time for football, and it's going to be good. As you said, public schools start tomorrow. They'll have the 3 days that they have to get acclimated to the heat and before they go into pads. But they'll be in pads next week, and we'll see scrimmages as early as the end of next week.
This whole acclimated to heat thing, I mean, this is new for me. I'm an old school guy. Guys, you was no acclimation time. You go on the field, you drink your water, you do what you do. Coaches yelling and screaming at you. It's the up downs, it's the training, it's the getting the mindset. I mean, now we got 3 days. Let's get acclimated to the weather. Haven't you had all spring? Haven't you had all summer to get acclimated? Now you got to give them another 3 days?
That's a good point. I brought that up earlier last year. We were talking about that. When we were growing up, there wasn't an acclimation. But we didn't do anything during the summer either. They weren't allowed to touch us after May until we came back for football. These days, these kids are working out all summer. They're in 7-on-7 all summer. What's to get acclimated to? They've been working out all year. They should be acclimated to it. I mean, these first 3 days are no different. They're doing nothing any different than they've been doing all summer.
And these guys train. I mean, I would go on the record and say, yes, they have better trainers. They have better conditioning. The science of the game and the science of conditioning and the body and all that stuff is so much more advanced now. I start thinking about, when you think about the heat and the guys that's going down with the heat, some similar, I guess I don't want to say heat strokes, but, overheating. We didn't have a lot of that back in the day. We were out in the sun. I think, it's the Xbox, it's the PlayStation, it's guys standing in the air conditioning, not getting outside, not playing basketball, not playing baseball at the gym in the heat. And now you're seeing guys can't stand the heat. So therefore, let's introduce a 3-day acclimation period.
Yeah, listen, we got one water break for practice, and they were shoving those big giant salt tablets down our throat.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Eat a couple of bananas here and there, get that potassium in you. Now, let's talk about some teams. As camps going for public schools, they start tomorrow. Who are some teams that you're really looking forward to see this year? I mean, we know what happened last year, and there's been a lot of turnover. And it seems like the most I've seen in years as far as coaches are concerned, a ton of turnover, even right here in the Midlands. But a team like Spring Valley and Robin Bacon, a team like Lugoff Elgin with Matthew Campbell, teams like that, Perry out at Ridgeview, are those some of the teams that you're really looking to see what they're going to be like here in the summer?
It's going to be interesting to see how they do. I think Spring Valley probably won't miss a beat. Robin Bacon's been there already, so he was just promoted to head coach. I don't think you'll see a lot of change over there. I think they'll throw the ball more. The biggest change is going to be at Lugoff Elgin. I mean, this is a team that's going to see a lot of differences in the type of offense they run under Matt Campbell, and I think that we're going to see a better product this year than we've seen in the past based on what they're doing. Of course, his son's there. He's a really good athlete, and he's playing quarterback right now. And, Perry Parks over at Ridgeview, going to have a good season over there. They've got a lot of athletes, and I think that they're going to be a much improved team. They're a sleeper in that region, by the way. I don't think they'll win that region, but they can be a spoiler for some of the other teams in that region.
I like you, Jim, and the reason why I love you being on the set with me, because I think you listen and you learn. When I talk about Ridgeview and having Coach Parks in here, you kind of flip the script a little bit. Now you're telling me that they are a surprise.
You trolling
could be a surprise.
You trolling my website. Man. You got my newspaper articles pulled up. I know where you're getting your information.
but again, I really do like the Ridgeview team. I'm looking to see what Lower Richland does. I mean, I think, when we saw them in the spring, Lower Richland's a team that they're really trying to instill discipline into. We know they have speed and athleticism. They got some good size. It's all about, really getting those guys on the same page and believing. And I think sometimes when you lose so much, losing can breed losing, just that negative mindset. But I think if he can flip their minds and they can get some early success, I think this Lower Richland team may be a sleeper.
And it's not going to be how they handle the success when they win. It's going to be how they recover from a loss. Because that's a program like that has lost a lot. It's tough to recover when you lose, because when you lose, you go into this mindset of, oh, well, here we go again. And you get in that mindset. You've got to turn that culture around.
Well, two teams that that play each other. It's a rivalry. I love the rivalry. That I'm a little bit on the fence what they're going to do. BC and Airport. And now these two teams that on paper, I think that looks really, really good. I mean, and BC took care of Airport last year in that rivalry. Kurt Burnett saying that, that's been so long since BC really has beat them. But these are two teams, Jim, that I think if things go right, especially for Airport, didn't have a good year last year, that they could bounce back and be a really good team.
Both these teams are going to be challengers in that region. As a matter of fact, I released the conference calls today in Baxter's Blitz. Airport #1 in that region, BC #2 in that region.
Oh.
And I think they're going to battle. They play twice. I don't like that. The first game of the year.
What's up with that?
The first game of the year is a pride game. It means absolutely nothing in terms of region standings. It doesn't count as a region game. The second game, which is the last game of the year for both of them, that's the game that's important, because that is a region matchup for those two teams.
Yeah, I don't like the two games either. I mean, I think it takes away from that rivalry. But, Coach Sharp, you're right there, has done a really good job. Real quickly, we got to go to break in about 30 seconds. Here's a team that Dr. Jerry Brown has went to. You talk about that, where he's going.
Well,
and I know he was at BC, but now he's not there. He's been making his round.
Yeah, he's left BC, and he's now over at Eau Claire as offensive coordinator.
That's an interesting move. I'm really anxious to see how that one's going to work out. Dr. Jerry Brown is at Eau Claire as the OC.
Yep.
So we're going to see the old option and a lot of running over there. So we're going to keep our eyes on that one for you. When we come back, we're going to talk about some realignment and things that may be going on. Jim has some insight on that. We'll talk about that after the break. You're watching Chick-Fil-A Overtime with me, Corey Miller, on Watch Fox. Welcome back to Chick-Fil-A Overtime. Corey Miller. Jim Baxter is the guy that's next to me. Let's talk about some realignment now of high school football. This is something that's been going around for a while. Would it be a 5A or not? Well, it looks like right now for sure, there's an announcement coming next week, Jim, that it's going to happen. There's going to officially be a 5A in the state of South Carolina. And we kind of got a pretty good idea who we think those teams are going to be in the 5A. And let's talk about that first of all, and then talk about maybe how that will affect the rest of the 4A. How about let's start right there?
Well, I think obviously we've known that we're going to go to a 5 classification system for several months now. It was approved. What we haven't known is what the regions were going to look like, and where the enrollment numbers were going to be cut, and who was going to actually go up. Because there's going to be some teams that are on the borderline going up to 5A or staying in 4A, and going up to 4A staying in 3A. So that's going to be the question. On Monday, it was announced at the clinic, Monday, the proposed region alignments are supposed to come out and go to all the athletic directors for approval. They'll have one final chance to appeal those if they don't like what they look like, and then it's back to the drawing board to make some changes. So we'll see what they look like. We know for sure, well, 99% certain that in the Columbia area, you're looking at Dutch Fork, Irmo, Blythewood, all moving up. Lugoff, Elgin, Spring Valley, White Knoll, River Bluff, Lexington, all going up to the 5A classification. So it leaves some teams in the 4A, but those are the teams that we're looking at that will impact for as far as moving up to 5A. Another interesting thing is going to be who goes up to 4A from 3A, because if you look at where they're, I don't think they want more than a 400 difference from the biggest school to the smallest school. Now you're going to have that in 4A because you've got 3 schools that are thousands of students, bigger than the other schools. But in the other classifications, they don't want to get away from a 400 split. So I think you're gonna have a team, for instance, like Brooklyn Casey, that could either move up to 4A or might possibly stay down in 3A. And the difference, how that impacts them is you go from being the largest school in the 3A classification, if that's where they stay, to being one of the smallest schools in the 4A classification, if that's where they stay. So it's going to matter. It really is going to matter where you stay in the split.
Well, if you're a coach, you're definitely watching this really careful. When you mentioned Brooklyn Casey, because for them that could be that's a huge jump. If you go up to 4A and be one of the smallest from a competition standpoint, that could hurt them. rather if they stay where they are at 3A,
Yeah.
they're pretty solid right now. And you got to think maybe some 2A jump up to 3A. The teams now they become a bigger 3A. That's advantage BC, but the way you just mentioned it, if it's the other way, if they move up, it could hurt them. Now, I'm sure these coaches probably going to argue that because they're thinking about it as wins and losses based on where they're positioned.
Where they're positioned. And, you know, honestly, you're talking about a disparity. It's going to be bigger in the 5A class. I think they're probably going to do the cutoff, I would assume, around 1,600 and start 4A at 1,600 and start 3A at 1,100. You know, if that's the case and you're 1,104 and you move up to 4A, that means you got an 1,104 enrollment and you're playing against schools with 1,600. And so, you know, that's going to be the argument. Well, but it's where it's at now. I mean, we still have that disparity now. I think you'll see the 2A classification start somewhere around 700. I think they wanted to push it lower than that because the push was to try to get Bishop England up to 3A.
Right.
And it's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen and keep the numbers evenly.
And Bishop England been really good down that 2A, very strong football team. But Reggie Kennedy said something when he was here on the set with us I thought was very crucial. And as he said, they're not really worried about it. If they move up, it's the same teams they're playing anyway.
Exactly.
So for them, it really don't make any difference. For Hermo, you're like, hey, it's all good. So if we bump up, I'm playing Spring Valley. I'm still playing Lexington. I'm still playing River Bluff. So for us, it's the same. We're playing the same teams.
The only difference that I see where it would make, and I understand what he's saying. You know, from a season standpoint, we're still playing the Lexingtons and the Hermos and the Blythewoods and Columbia area. Where it makes a difference is if they keep one champion and they go to the 5-class system. That means if you are a school that's got 1,600 or 1,605 kids and the split's at 1,600, then you're going to be in the playoffs against teams that used to be Big 16 schools. Right. So basically you're going to have some schools that would have been Division II in 4A playing against teams that were Division I 4A in the same classification. And I think that's where the biggest difference is.
Well, one team and schools that won't have a difference is SCISA. They're going to be set and staying the same. The SCISA 3A is what we're going to look at after the break. Hammond has been the king for years. Eric Kimry has dominated SCISA. Is there a team that can unseat Hammond? We'll tell you maybe one that's on the prowl. That's all coming up next as Chick-Fil-A Overtime rolls right on. You're watching Chick-Fil-A Overtime with me, Corey Miller, on Watch Fox. Are you ready for some SCISA football, or at least for us to talk about it? They started camp today. Eric Kimry and the Hammond Skyhawks was on the field at 7 o'clock this morning on their way, hopefully, for him and the Hammond team to try to win another state title. He's won 7 out of 9 years. And the question kind of comes up every year, is there anybody in SCISA that can beat the Skyhawk team? Now, we were out there this spring. When you look at them on the field and, you know, in pads, didn't look impressive. I didn't think they had guys like that guy, Tyler Bray, who's a very good running back. They lost him. They lost the quarterback. But don't worry, Hammond. They got some help in Graham Smith, the guy who was getting recruited and looks very good at throwing the football. Now, Coach Kimry told me that he still is learning and picking up the system. But he is a guy, big guy with a big arm, I think that's going to help this team compete. Now, if there's a team in SCISA, Jim, that can maybe potentially unseat them, at least on paper, it's the Falcons of Ben Lippen. And I'm giving you some love because I used to coach out there at Ben Lippen when my son CJ went to school there. So, but they got talent. I think in years they've had better talent than Hammond, but they just can't beat them, Jim. Why?
Well, I think, you know, they haven't had consistency at the coaching level. They haven't had the same coach, you know, for several years in a row, and it's hard to build a program when you don't have the same coaches there. I think they've got Derek White over there now. I think Derek's one of the great young coaches in South Carolina. He was offensive coordinator at Christ Church when they won all those state championships in 1A. And, of course, he's at Ben Lippen now calling the shots, and he's got some good talent over there. I think that you know, is this the year they do it? I don't think so, but I don't think they're very far away from being there to being a team that can compete day in, day out with the Hammond.
Well, a team that kind of unseated Hammond was Wilson Hall, and they're a team that a tough, gritty team. They always played hard. When I was coaching in SCISA, I mean, I always respected that team. They play hard, smart, but I'm looking at Ben Lippen, and there we go. We got some homecoming highlights right there. There we go. But Wilson Hall is a team who has a good quarterback, who has a good team returning. Can they be a team that unseat Hammond?
Well, they are certainly a team that's competitive, and I think that their quarterback, McClendon Sears, is one of the best in the state in terms of SCISA competition. And you know, you get a look at him on film, and he's a kid that could play at a lot of public schools if he was in the public school system right now. So they're a very competitive team, very well coached team. Of course, their coach came from Augusta Christian back when Augusta Christian was a powerhouse at SCISA. So good coaching there, just like there is at Hammond, just like there is at Ben Lippen now. And I think that's the biggest change that we've seen in SCISA in the last 10 years is the caliber of coaching that's in SCISA right now. Coaching's a lot better.
Well, I will say there's great coaching at Hammond. I mean, you're just saying, I'm not saying it because Eric Kimmer's a good friend of mine, is a Gamecock. I'm just saying, I don't care where you are, but if you win the 7 out of 9 and got there 9 times and won 7 of them, I'm going to classify that as great. And I don't toss that word around loosely. Well, Ben Lippen is hoping that they can unseat Hammond. They've been working hard in the spring, this summer. They got some good players, some good skill players at receiver and at quarterback. Actually, a quarterback that plays quarterback and receiver. You're going to see a switch up at that position. But Coach White thinks this is a team that might make some noise in the 2015.
You know, this year we had 28 guys last year. This year we got about 43 on the roster. You know, big improvement. We're hoping to get a little more 2 platoon action. You know, get some guys 11 playing offense, 11 playing defense. You know, kind of condition and help us out. But I mean, I'm expecting big things. We had a great off season. Our kids really worked hard in the weight room and conditioning wise. We're a little ahead of where we were last year. So we lost some good seniors last year, but I mean, we're returning a lot of skilled guys, and we got two great quarterbacks with a young 10th grader that can help us too. I mean, we're going to be in a good situation, I think, for ourselves.
Well, you like him as a coach. He's a good coach, another good coach into the SCISA alignment there, but he's got his hands full. One thing about Hammond is I like the system, and I like how they teach. And I think, you know, when I coached in that league, Jim, you don't have a plethora of talent. I mean, you don't have guys just running around the Jimmys and the Joes like a lot of these public schools. You got to take those best 2, 3, 4 players and find out the best way of how to utilize them and get them in the right position. And I think that's what Hammond has really done a great job. They find those 2 or 3, 4 players, and the system really helped elevate those guys to another level. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk about the best 2, 3, 4, 5 players in SCISA and the 2, 3, 4, 5 best teams in SCISA. Well, there's not a whole lot to choose from, so we're going to have to actually go together on some of these. So that's going to happen when we come back. I hate it because I can't disagree with Jim. We'll be back in a moment. You're watching Chick-Fil-A Overtime with me, Corey Miller, on Watch Fox. And we're back. Final segment here on this lovely, what night is it? Thursday night. It's always Thursday night for Chick-Fil-A Overtime. Sometimes when I get so busy, my days get a little bit confused. What about yours?
Until football season gets here.
I know.
Everything circles
my landmarks, you know what I mean? Yeah. But in a few weeks, though, we'll be at it, though. This the Thursday before. Boom. It's going to be on. We're going to be talking about some real live games. And of course, SCISA's got a couple good games coming up on their schedule this year with the Hammond opens up against Ben Lippen. That's to open their season. Is going to be a really good football game. But when you talk about the top teams in SCISA, I mean, everybody from day one is going to say it's all about the Skyhawks of Hammond. So, and there's not a ton of teams like public schools. So we still want to give SCISA their love, Jim, and say, hey, here's our top 5 teams in the Midlands. And I'm going to let you go first because you're older than me. And, you know,
older,
age
better
before,
looking, and it's going to be correct.
Age before beauty. So go right ahead and give me your top 5 SCISA in the Midlands.
Number 1 on the list is Hammond. Until somebody beats them, they got to stay at that number 1 spot. Wilson Hall, we're including them in the Midlands area. I think Wilson Hall is a team that can compete with Hammond. Ben Lippen, we talked about earlier, being a team that can come up and compete. They're going to be very good, outstanding players over there. Heathwood Hall, I think, is a team that's going to be improved this year. They got a good quarterback coming up this year. Of course, a solid running back, linebacker that we'll talk about in a little bit. And then Cardinal Newman, number 5 on that list for the Midlands area.
Really nice list, Jim. Really nice list. I mean, you know, every week I got to say you have a really nice list. It really is. I mean, SC Varsity, you do a lot of homework. I respect your opinion, but it's not the best list. So let's go. Number 1 is Hammond. Until somebody beats Eric Kimry, they're the best team, not only in the Midlands and SCISA, they're the best team in the state, if you ask me. Number 2, Wilson Hall. I like this team. The Barons are tough. They come down from that Sumter area. They're good, tough, gritty football team. Good quarterback. When you got a good trigger man, you got to like him. Well, Ben Lippen has that too. They got a good trigger man. Matter of fact, they got 2 guys and they got a top wide receiver, one of the top in SCISA, one of the top in the state as far as the numbers last year. So I think Coach White's going to do a good job, and I think they're a sneaky team in the SCISA. We just have to wait and see. Number 4, new coach at Cardinal Newman. And we visited them this spring. I like them. I like what they're doing. Michael Bowere's over there, former Spring Valley standout, Florida State and Viking and Seahawk. He's over there. They're really getting some good teaching of football. I like Cardinal Newman at 4, Jim, and not 5. And at 5, it's got to be the Highlanders of Heatwood. Come on. They haven't won anything. They haven't won anything. And they got a new coach that I haven't even heard of. I haven't heard of them yet. I'm giving them a chance, but I haven't heard of them yet.
The good thing is you'll be able to change them after they beat them.
Okay, we'll see. All right, let's go to our top 5 players in SCISA real quick because we actually agreed upon these in order. Number 1, there's no doubt the best player in SCISA. Matter of fact, he might be one of the best players in the state. You know why? He's going to Duke. Don't say nothing too fast because it's Duke. Because he had Oregon, he had Clemson, he had some other offers out there, Jim. He's a good player. Graham Smith, I like it. Hammond, they haven't heard of him, but I like him. I'll let you do the rest. Those are my 2 best players in SCISA.
Well, they're the 2 best in the Midlands area. Because I think number 1 player in SCISA plays at Florence Christian, Alex Hayes, a running back, defensive back. But I agree with you. Brandon Hill, Graham Smith, number 2. Cole Owens, wide receiver over at Ben Lippin, led the state in SCISA last year in receiving. He's in number 3. Seth Ham, big defensive end, 6'3", 210-pound range of Cardinal Newman. He's a good player on the edge of that defense. And then McClendon Sears, we talked about, the quarterback, Wilson Hall. He's a rising junior. He's actually already committed, middle infielder to play baseball for the Gamecocks. So outstanding athlete at Wilson Hall. And there's your top 5 players in the Midlands area for SCISA.
Well done. And I know you needed my help for those, but well done. And so you said Sears is going to play for Chad Holbrook?
Committed to Gamecocks.
That's nice. I like him. I might have to move him up. I'm just kidding, but it's going to be a good year in SCISA. It's going to be a good year, and of course public school as well. And Jim and I got so much going on for you with high school football. We're excited about it to get things rocking and rolling. Only about 3 weeks away. We'll be breaking down those highlights for you right here on the Chick-Fil-A Overtime. But until then, keep it cool and keep it safe. For Jim, for Amberlynn Pennycuff, for Dustin Martin behind the scenes, those guys do a great job. We appreciate all of you watching the Chick-Fil-A Overtime, and have a great night.